I have posted many videos on this channel in regards to The Lord of the Rings. It's my favorite film trilogy of all time, and that's probably never going to change for as long as I live. I think those movies are expertly crafted. They were shot back to back, all at once pretty much. And then they released them over a year or two every so often in the early 2000s, and they are phenomenal experiences, even today. I have watched these films theatrical, and they're very good. They're very long, even theatrically. Then I picked up the extended editions, and the extended cuts are just so much better. And then I hear there's even longer cuts of Jackson's Lord of the Rings trilogy, and that is good. When I finally got around to watching the Hobbit movies in the mid-2010s, those were also pretty good. They were not better than the Lord of the Rings, obviously, but they were on par. I didn't really agree with a lot of the decisions made, but then I was also a lot younger, and I loved seeing Legolas, and he wasn't in the book at all. His father Thranduil was, but he was never named. He was called the Elven King, because obviously the Hobbit was written before the Lord of the Rings, and now the Hobbit was released after the Lord of the Rings, film-wise. And the films are pretty much the mainstream audience's access to the Lord of the Rings story. They would rather watch the films than read the books, and I'm kind of in the same ballpark. I have the books, obviously. I have two versions of them. I have the main version I picked up as a kid that I've shown off in previous videos when I was ranting about the Rings of Power. And I could rant about the Rings of Power again, but honestly, I'm just too exhausted to look or hate watch or just look at the Rings of Power anymore. I'm just too exhausted. I've already said what I wanted to say about it. It's a disaster piece. It looks beautiful. It does. There is a good amount of talent in the CG, in the atmospheric design, and even Bear McCreary, who does the soundtrack for the Rings of Power series. And he also does it for the Norse God of War games, which I also don't really care for. But even the music is very good. There are some ideas that I do really like in the Rings of Power. One of those ideas, I think I'll go ahead and get out of the way, is that in Season 2, The Rings of Power, the making of all the rings, I hated how they were made, all of the rings, all of them. I despised everything about that. But there is one thing that came out of that dumpster fire that I actually thought was a pretty good idea. Dar, the villain orc guy from the first season, is revealed to be one of the elves that was morphed and corrupted by Morgoth. And I do like that idea. It was pulled from the appendices in a way. Almost everything in the Rings of Power in a very, 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 very loose way. And also to the point of, if it didn't really say anything in the appendices, it's still free game to use. We just can't go too much against the appendices. They pretty much already just put a torch to the appendices anyways. But either way, I did like the idea of Adar. The idea of him. Not the actual initial portrayal or initiation of him, but I like the idea that one of the corrupted elves survived the War of Wrath, and he survived into the Second Age, and he gets a hold of one of the elven rings, and he puts it on, and it actually starts to cure him of Morgoth's corruption. He starts to look like how he used to look before Morgoth got his hands on him. And I liked that idea. I really liked that idea. I just wanted to say that I liked that idea. I didn't really like anything else about it. I don't like what happens with Adar in Season 2. Pretty much everything outside of that idea. Just the idea. The actual portrayal is not as good, but the idea is sound. It's a good idea. You just should have done it completely differently. The Rings of Power is... But then again, hey, we've had plenty of versions of the Lord of the Rings as well. take a look at Ralph Bakshi's The Lord of the Rings. I actually watched this and I thought it was a really good time. I don't think it's better than Peter Jackson's Fellowship of the Rings or The Two Towers, because this film does combine the first two films into 1 2-hour and 10-minute runtime experience. So everything does feel rushed. But there's an atmosphere about it that feels like it's a story tale. It's a storytelling type of experience with a narrator summarizing the events of a lot of things. It's like you're flipping through the page of a storybook almost. Ralph Bakshi is a phenomenal animator who is well known for his use of rotoscoping in an interesting way. The way he animates the orcs, the Rohirrim, and the Nazgul are, I wouldn't say they're heavily rotoscoped. They film live action footage of all of this stuff, right? They film all of that stuff, and then they barely edit over. They barely animate it over. It's almost like they're scribbling over. There's just some scribbles and not full animation color. It's like there's multiple animation techniques, multiple rotoscope techniques on the screen at the same time. During the Helm's Deep attack, when all of the orcs are attacking, that big march of the orcs was one of the most metal looking things I've ever seen. I think that psychedelic design and color choice, this psychedelic look about it. I don't know how else to describe it, but it is really trippy looking, but it does look nightmarish in a way that not even Jackson managed to do. And I did like the marching theme, because the orcs do have a lot of marching theme. They had drummers and all that stuff keeping in time to the marching. There might even have been a little horns and singing along and all that stuff. An orc marching song to try to build valor and morale amongst the orcs, and lower morale amongst the Rohirrim who were manning the walls of Helm's Deep. It was a pretty good idea. I liked that. But what I liked better in this than I liked in the Jackson films would have to be Gandalf is very fun in his design here, especially with the hat. He keeps it on almost the entire time. I think Ian McKellen takes the hat off a bunch of times, so I just like the wizard look about him in this. He just looks very wizardly. Gandalf, obviously, by Ian McKellen, is the best Gandalf depiction, but I like the outfit that Gandalf the Grey wears in this. I did like that a lot. But there's not too much I could really say that I like more, but I like it on par to Jackson's Lord of the Rings. Even though everything does feel rushed, there are some scenes that are actually added in here that weren't in the they weren't even in the extended cuts, to my knowledge. There is a scene in The Prancing Pony and Bree where they get to actually contact and speak with what's his face, the ButterBEER. I don't know the guy's name. ButterBEER's Harry Potter, I think. But Bitterdew, that Bitterdew is Drist. Is some guy, the barman in Bree, the guy with the mustache man. I forget his name every single time. I look it up all the time. I've looked it up 15 times and I've forgotten it 15 times. How can I forget? The man at the Prancing Pony, the bartender man, the owner of the inn, right? Frodo and his friends always, there's a scene where they talk to him in an extended scene, and Aragorn is there, and he's talking with him as well. That scene wasn't in the movies, so I like that there are some scenes in here that they actually decided to put in, even though they're trying to combine two very huge books. They're still doing some things differently. One of the major differences in this is how Frodo is saved from the Nazgul in the Ride of the Nazgul as he's riding into Rivendell. Instead of Arwen, And also, instead of Glorfindel, obviously, they run into Legolas. Instead, Legolas is on his way to Rivendell, and they somehow run into him, even though the Mirkwood is on the other side, to the east, rather than Weathertop, which is to the west. They still run into Legolas, and they have a little rapport there, and then Legolas puts Frodo on his horse and tells the horse to run off to Rivendell, and then Gandalf uses a spell on the water to make it look like horses marching against him, instead of it being a spell from Arwen or something like that. And I like that Gandalf explains that the elven magic was from Elrond, not necessarily from anybody else, but he did offer a little decorations to the spell as well. So the two of them pretty much combined their powers to use to drive the Nazgul away. So I liked that, and that wasn't in the Jackson films either. It was just Arwen. Arwen wasn't in this at all. She wasn't even in it at all, and that's this. Let's talk about the outfits too. I hate Aragorn's design in this, and I hate Boromir's design in this. Aragorn looks like some caveman, Cro-Mag man, he's like wearing a loincloth with the green cloak and all. The only thing that I really liked with the green cloaks, which were probably very, very distinctly designed by Tolkien himself, that's pretty much why all of the versions that use this show those green cloaks. But other than that, I think they were called the Piwafwis or something like that. Other than that, the outfits were very different. Boromir is wearing a horned helmet. He looks like some sort of Viking man, like some big Viking man. And Aragorn looks like some Cro-Mag man from caves. He looks like he belongs in a cave or something. And he talks very distinctly. He talks very in a British, very posh and British tone. I'd prefer his outfit from the Jackson films. It looks like a man of distinction, but also a man who's used to being on the road. I liked that design. The Dunedain should be people who look like noble, high-born people living on hard times, but despite living on hard times, they still manage to portray a sense of regality that normal men do not possess. And that was the type of aura that Aragorn displayed at the Prancing Pony when Frodo and his companions were there. I liked that they did that in the movies. They showed that type of difference that sets Aragorn apart from everybody else. Aragorn stood taller than most of the men of Bree, even. And that was a good design choice as well. But either way, I could appreciate what they were trying to do at any rate. I don't know if I'm ever going to watch the Rankin Bass movies. Rankin Bass came back to do Return of the King, since they didn't get Bakshi back to do Return of the King. I don't know why. Maybe this film absolutely failed at the box office, or direct-to-video sales are poor. I don't know what happened to it. I didn't look it up. I just watched it and thought I'd talk about it a little bit. The Bakshi Lord of the Rings is fine. It's not great. It's not bad. It's very fine. This filmmaker made an excellent adult animated sword and sandal film that I need to get my hands on eventually. They need to re-release this film on DVD some point, maybe on Blu-ray in a remastered collection or something. But they need to release Fire and Ice. That is the film that Ralph Bakshi is probably most infamous for in the cinephile space. That film is fantastic. I've looked at trailers, I've looked at clips. That film, I need to get it. If you like adult animation, like heavy metal and all of that, like The Spine of Night, that's a more recent one. If you like this type of adult animation, fantasy, epic fantasy type of stuff, Fire and Ice is in that caliber, and that is a Ralph Bakshi film. I need to get my hands on it. This is the first Bakshi film I actually ended up owning, and it wasn't bad. I'm looking forward to seeing how Bakshi does Fire and Ice.